Public relations professionals spend a significant amount of time analyzing, preparing for, and managing conflict. In this presentation, we will review public relations from a management perspective and the role of public relations in managing conflict. We will then look at factors that influence conflict management and the models and theories used by PR professionals. Finally, we will go through the 4 phases of the conflict management life cycle to give you an understanding of what occurs at each step. A new way of thinking defines public relations as the strategic management of competition and conflict. This definition goes beyond mutually beneficial relationships and examines public relations as a valued management function that contributes to the organization's overall success. While competition and conflict can sometimes go hand in hand, it's important to make a distinction between the two. Competition deals with 2 or more groups fighting for the same resource. For example, 2 nonprofit organizations seeking donations from the same stakeholders. Conflict occurs when 2 groups direct their efforts against each other, causing verbal attacks. An example of conflict would be an animal rights activist group lobbying product testing on animals. Conflict is inherent in the public relations process, and PR professionals should develop strategies to manage various types of conflicts. However, since each conflict will require a unique solution, the first step in developing those strategies is assessing the factors that influence conflict management. These factors include external and internal variables that will impact the strategy that should be used. After assessing internal and external variables, a PR practitioner should develop a stance or position to address the conflict from. From there, the strategy can be developed to properly manage the conflict. Next, we will discuss 2 approaches to determining how to react in a conflict. The threat appraisal model states that good PR professionals monitor for threats, assess those threats, arrive at a desirable stance for the organization, and then begin communication efforts from that stance. After a threat is identified, the situational demands and resources need to be evaluated when determining a proper stance for the organization. Contingency theory places public relations strategies on a continuum from pure advocacy for the organization to pure accommodation of a public. At one extreme, the public relations practitioner only considers the needs and wants of the organization and completely disagrees or refutes the arguments of the other group. This stance is called pure advocacy. The organization might consider such responses as litigation against a party making false accusations. At the other end of the spectrum, the PR professional agrees with the public, changes its policies, and offers an apology. This stance is called pure accommodation. Contingency theory addresses 2 principles. The first is that many factors will determine the stance of an organization. The second is that the stance is dynamic and will change as events unfold. Conflicts have the potential to become crises, which could damage an organization's image and revenue. Thus, conflict management is an essential part of the public relations profession. Understanding the life cycle of conflict management allows PR professionals to develop more accurate and successful response strategies. The conflict management life cycle is divided into 4 phases that document the process a PR professional goes through before, during, and after a conflict. Those phases include proactive, strategic, reactive, and recovery. Based on which phase a situation is in, the public relations professional can determine which strategy should be used to handle the situation. Some tactics are better suited to specific phases, however, others can be implemented in multiple phases. The proactive phase is designed to prevent an issue from occurring. The phase is also used to prevent an issue from becoming a crisis. Effective implementation of this phase can sometimes allow an organization to avoid a conflict. The first step in the proactive phase is environmental scanning. In this step, the PR professional constantly consumes information from various outlets and takes note of anything that could impact or interact with the organization's interest. Issues tracking is a more focused approach in which PR professionals hone in on specific topics and begin to follow the media surrounding those topics. Issues management signifies a change in the PR professional's actions. Rather than watching and taking note of potential problems, in this step, the PR professional begins to create strategic plans to address emerging issues. Effective public relations departments take this phase to the last step and develop a general crisis plan that would be implemented if the issue escalates and becomes a crisis. In the strategic phase, the emerging conflict is identified by the PR professional as something that will require action. The three strategies implemented in this phase are risk communication, conflict positioning, and crisis management. Risk communication allows the public relations professional to minimize future damages caused by the crisis by informing stakeholders of the potential danger. Conflict positioning is similar to the concept of stance, which we discussed earlier. Conflict positioning is when an organization determines how to position itself favorably in order to prepare for public reaction. Finally, a crisis management plan is developed in order to prepare for the worst possible scenario. As its name suggests, in this phase, the public relations professional is reacting to the situation as it unfolds. Proper planning and execution of the previous phases will give the PR professional an advantage in this phase. In crisis communication, the PR professional implements the crisis management plan from the previous phases and, in addition, ensures effort is being made around the clock to meet the needs of the publics impacted. When a conflict has emerged but hasn't yet reached a crisis level, conflict resolution techniques can be used to negotiate, ease tension, and prevent the conflict from becoming a crisis. When a favorable resolution is not negotiated, conflicts can end up in court. Litigation public relations specialists employ tactics to gain support from the public concerning the trial. The final phase, the recovery phase, addresses the aftermath of a crisis situation. Reputation management is the process of researching and understanding the organization's reputation in the minds of the public. If the reputation is unfavorable, the PR professional will implement tactics to address the reputation problem. Image restoration strategies are used when an organization's reputation is severely damaged and the organization will actually have to make changes in order to restore their favorable image. In this presentation, we reviewed public relations from a management perspective and the role of public relations in managing conflict. We then looked at factors that influence conflict management and the models and theories used by PR professionals. Finally, we reviewed the 4 phases of the conflict management life cycle so that you can see what happens at each step.